Rizal's astrological character. Rizal has a very unique astrological profile according to numerology, colorology, birthday divination, and Western, Chinese and Celtic Druid astrology. Western and Celtic Druid astrology are using the celestial bodies and their relations in conjunction with the date of birth, and both use a monthly calendar. Eastern astrology uses the date of birth to establish the year in a 12-year cycle of the Chinese calendar. In numerology, a divine number is derived from the name using the Chaldean method. In Western astrology, Rizal's Western star sign is Leo. Western elements are fire and planet is sun. For Chinese astrology, Rizal's Chinese zodiac is dragon, Chinese element is water, and the yin-yang force is yang. To Celtic Druid astrology, numerology, and colorology, Rizal's Celtic Druid zodiac is popular 3. Name number is 5 and the divine color is blue. At last, in gemology and birthday divination, Rizal's birthstone is peridot, the season is summer, and the day of the week is Tuesday. These astrological signs and symbols are very important. They explain everything about the personality characteristics of this person. As an ox person, ox people are supposed to be benevolent, caring spirits, consistent, positive, loaded up with sound judgment, and with their feet immovably planted on the ground. Telling buckets down, calmly and deliberately, with unique aside and intelligent ideas. These individuals appreciate helping other people. Behind this steady, laboring, and selfless outside lies a functioning brain. Work that they have regarding others, they are generally open to discourse. They discuss others as pointers, dreading neither obligations nor risk. Be that as it may, now and again, they should work for extended periods to achieve pretty much nothing. As a Gemini, the indication of the twins, is double-natured, tricky, complex, and inconsistent. From one perspective, it creates the ethicalness of adaptability, and on the other, the indecencies of too exertions and eccentricity. They take up new exercises excitedly, however, need the application, continually requiring the interest. Fluttering from the task to another as evidently purposely, their precision, however extreme for some time, doesn't stand the test of time. Gemini normally has seriously intelligent surface, cognizant kind of physics, yet not for most part extremely exhaustive. Their absence of compassion and sympathy is established in their feeling of singularity. They keep away from any sort of brilliance and ordinary limitations. Gemini can show a double nature, given a need to safeguard personality alongside being engaged with more than each thing in turn. Rizal's achievements. A few creators guaranteed that Jose Rizal was a virtuoso, a designer of craftsman, finance manager, visual artist, teacher, financial specialist, ethologist, logical research student. Of history, creator, columnian, symbolist, performist, nebologist, variety naturals, power specialist, painter, doctor, artist, advocate, analyst, researcher, stone, carver, social scientist, and scholar. He had the option to communicate in 22 disease days, including Arabic, Catalan, Chinese, English, French, German, Greek, Hebrew, Italian, Japanese, Latin, Malayan, Portuguese, Russian, Sanskrit, Spanish, Tagalog, and other local vernaculars. He was a specialist fighter, a distinct passion and the flow as his number one instrument. Research genealogy. The research original name, Mercado, which means market, was adopted by Domingo Lamco Rizal's paternal ancestor to protect his descendant from the Spanish authorities' anti-Chinese hatred. Domingo Lamco was born in the town of Shongqi in the Chinese province of Guangzhou, pronounced Chanzhou. Chu Yai Lam was Domingo Lamco's Chinese name, also pronounced in Mandarin, Kainan. He was the 19th generation of Shongqi's first Sua settlers, Li Flores, 1999. The particles from his parents' names, Ko and Neo, Chenko and Soneo, equivalent to the Spanish Don and Duo, signified that Domingo Lamco belonged to the Chinese upper socioeconomic bracket through 1964-92. Cirilla Alejandro is Juan's wife. Juan was elected 3 times as mayor of Bayan and was one of the electors who chose the Filipino delegate to the Spanish court office. He also served as a church leader. He was noted for his public service, generosity, democratic ideals, and honesty. He modified the tribute list of that his service generosity. Relatives are treated as natives rather than Chinese mestizos. Juan and Cirilla had 12 children. The eldest of them were Francisco Mercado and Jose Rizal's father. When Francisco's fathers died in 1826, he was just 8 years old. Egidio Ursua Jose Rizal's maternal great-grandpa was a Japanese Catholic who fled persecution in Japan by settling in the Philippines. Eugenio had a daughter named Regina after marrying Benigna. Manuel Quintus, a lawyer and Chinese mestizo, married Regina Brigida Quintus. Is the result of their union. Brigada married Lorenzo Alberto Alonso Ebian. Laguna-based Spanish-Filipino mestizo Lorenzo Alberto Alonso Relunda and Brigida Quintos have a daughter named Dua Tudora. Rizal's parents knew Shoni. Gubjin Narcissus Rizal forced Don Francisco Mercado to take the surname Rizals in 1850. Libreria ordered that all Filipinos take the surname Liberia. In the aftermath of the execution of the 3 Filipino priests, Jose Rizal had used the surname Rizal in school, which might be linked to the climate of dread and mistrust. His kuya Pasiano had been associated with Father Burgos and has used Mercado according to Jade 1981-6. The little Rizal comes from the Spanish word areas shakers, means green, meadow or fresh pastures. Guerrero 1998, on the other hand, defined the phrase as a sprouting harvested what field. 1991 and 16. Third Rizal was derived from the Romano-Latin word races, which my producer Don Francisco News surname donated agribusiness as a source of income. Rizal's family is Principalia. Jose Rizal grew up in a well-educated family. His father, Don Francisco, was a wealthy landowner and sugar grower who had studied Latin and philosophy at the Colegio de San Jose in Manila. Dua Tudora, Jose Rizal's mother, was educated in the Colegio de Santa Maria and had a strong influence on his intellectual growth. Rosa is a woman who has a Dequilas 1993-16 in Calamba. The Rizal's family was a member of the Principalia, a town aristocracy during the Spanish colony, and an upper middle class family. This class had defined from the agricultural export economy's expansion. Results grew up in a nice environment. Schramatcher's 1984-58. The Rizal's family financial and economic fortunes were inextricably linked to the Dominican. Don Francisco worked in the Oceanida as a list tenant consul in indicating the Rizal's Dominican relations were cordial. Rice, corn, and sugar were grown in enormous plots of land by the Rizal's family. They ran a sugar mill, a wheat mill, and a ham press from scratch. They were also involved in the dye and sugar industries as well as bartering. They also had a large store in a town, Delgado, and the family had a large library and was able to build an adobe house in Calamba where a rig tiled roof. Don Francisco was able to construct the first stone house in Calamba, as well as own the first piano and carriage. Sibling of Rizal. 11 children, 9 daughters, and 2 sons were the fruits of Don Francisco and Doña Teodora's marriage. Doña Teodora was 9 years younger than Don Francisco. They were married in 1848. Their children were the following. Number 1, Saturnina, 1850 to 1930. Pasiano, 1851 to 1930. Narcisa, 1852 to 1939. Olympia, 1855 to 1887. Lucia, 1857 to 1919. Maria, 1859 to 1945. Jose, Concepcion, 1862 to 1865. Josefa, 1865 to 1945. Trinidad, 1868 to 1951. Soledad, 1870 to 1929. Accredito intellectual greatness. Rizal's intellectual recognitions and grandeur were linked to their factors: hereditary, environmental, and divine gifts. Jose Rizal inherited his forefathers and parents' characteristics. Jose Rizal's inborn artistic and literary talents were inspired by the scenic beauty of Calamba. Rizal was endowed with the adaptive aptitudes of the prodigy by God. However, the Rizal's financial advantages, which enabled them to send Jose Rizal to the greatest school and institutions of the period, should be regarded as a major factor in this intellectual development. Amidst inferiority complex and dilemma, Jose Rizal had struggled with inferiority complexes since he was a child. His physical appearance had a significant negative impact on him. His sisters ridiculed him for this weak frame because he was regarded as very tiny child with excessively large head. As a result, Rizal developed a gnawing sense of inadequacy and self-consciousness, and that carried into adulthood. Rizal sought to get rid of his bad reputation in this early adolescence by getting into bodybuilding and athletics. Jose Rizal has an intriguing personality in adulthood, and his remarkable life can be linked to his desire to rise above himself. For himself and others, he was not brought down by his inferiority complex. His emotional intelligence is unquestionably high. He was an illustrator who lived a colorful life that captivated both friends and foes alike. Homecoming, its happiness and disappointments. On August 5, 1887, Jose Rizal arrived in Manila. He arrived at Calamba 3 days later. His family was overjoyed at the news. Rizal built a middle clinic in his hometown. He also built a gymnasium where he taught gymnastics, fencing, and shooting. he was able to divert the Tomites' attention away from gambling and cockfighting. Meanwhile, Rizal was summed by the Govjun Emilio Terrero Beprenant 330 Mason, a liberal government figure, to visit him about the Noli Me Tangere incident. Govjun Terrero wanted to read the book himself. Rizal was able to provide one copy to the general for his study. The threats passed by the friars were mitigated by his Masonic freemasonry betrayal. The novel was found to the floors by Government General Terrero. Gov. Terrero, on the other hand, received a report from a committee of Dominican scholars claiming that the Noli Me Tangere contained parts that were detrimental to public order. Calamba agrarian problems were exacerbated by the Noli to issue. Rizal discovered the Dominican hacienda at Calamba on the surrounding properties, including the town. The friars imposed and a democratic increase in rents, resulting religious orders to protested to Govjun Terrero a regular basis to was scolding Rizal too much to go. Jun Terrero recommended Rizal to a regular basis that was scolding Rizal too much. Rizal to leave the country. Rizal's personal safety as well as the safety of his family, and when the Archbishop and the provincial of several religious orders protested to Govjun, sting earners recommended Rizal to leave the country. Rizal's personal safety as well as safety of his family and friends was also concerned. Pressure to leave the homeland. As a result, faced death threats on a daily basis. After being pushed out by powerful opponents, Rizal returned to the Philippines for the second time on February 3, 1888 after a sojourn of about 6 months. He carried 5,000 in earnings for his medical profession with him. He was still sick when he boarded the Safari in Manila, and he was terribly sick during the journey. Rizal arrived in Hong Kong and spent around 2 weeks trip. He stayed with Don Sima, a friend of his. Basa took advantage of the opportunity to learn Chinese, capture and tutor for himself. He also discovered that the Dominicans had sizable real estate and banking stake in Hong Kong. Stay in continental Europe. Rizal abruptly adopted London to Paris on March 19, 1889, where he resided until January 28, 1890. He continued his artistic, intellectual, and patriotic endeavors during his time in Paris. His annotated edition of Morgas Successus was also published by him. He wanted Filipinos and foreigners to read the book so they might learn that the Filipinos were already cultured before the Spanish colonists arrived. The displacement in Calamba. The Rizal family, which numbered around 30 families, was given 24 hours to demolish their homes in Deep Calamba. Don Francisco and Dua Chodora were personally ejected from the residence. Governor Wheeler has ordered that 25 Calamba people be deported to Jolo. By March 1891, 42 family for heads had been deported. leaving 300 household islands and Pinas. The majority of the town was burned down and the majority of the structures were destroyed. The London Quest. Rizal set out for Europe on May 16, 1888 and arrived in England on May 24 from is similar to England in terms of its system, punctuality, sincerity of purpose, and adherence to traditions. Dr. Winhold wrote, the librarian of the Ministry to Foreign Affairs as well as the editor to Traveler's Record. An Asian Studies journal became a friend of Rizal. Dr. Rost was so impressed by Rizal's intelligence and temperament that he suggested him to the British Museum administrators on August 14, 1888. Rizal received his permit to read at the British Museum in London. American tour in Europe to London. Rizal departed Japan for America on April 13, 1888 and landed in San Francisco, California on April 28. From there, he went on an observation trip across the United States, stopping in New York for a bit. His voyage prompted him to praise America as a place for the poor yearning for work. But he despised American prejudice against Asians and Africans and was particularly outraged by several states' bans on interracial marriage. He observed a lack of racial equality between whites and blacks as well as the fact and whites have exclusive access to freedom. Positively, Rizal was pleased by United States material growth, its people drive energy and high standard of living, the greater chances provided to poor immigrants, and the natural beauty of the area. A guest of the postage. Rizal went to Bayards, France to escape his frustrator and Madrid and lived with the Boston family for about a month. Some of his acquaintances attempted to encourage him to marry one of the influential Mr. Edward Bostage's daughters. Rizal, however, despite his desire, opted to subordinate his passion to the necessities and demands of patriotism. He left letters for Paris on March 13, 1991. He continued on Brussels and finally Jean, where he was able to publish his second novel, Il Filibusterismo, in mid-April because he was short on cash. The printing was done in sections. El Filibusterismo, Legend, Provocateur. El Filibusterismo 1991, a spin-off of the Noli Me Tangere, records the exercises of Simon Ibarra's modified self-image. Simon tries to get revenge on those liable to his situation through the perplexing trap for connections. Simon starts. The processor is made mindful of the degree to which and bad form exists in the public arena. Apparently, the main option is transformation, awaited by the transparent Simon, who was his to inherit the Spanish system. Be that has the May Simon in the transformation, he incited Fasas in the slice, kicking the bucket. He was swayed by Padre Florentino to settle on essential choice. The message of the filibusterismo is clear. A current procedure for overseeing the Philippines too bad and agreed authorities overwhelmed by the ministers and compliant to their advantage. Confirmed catastrophe for Spain by its inclination and activity, the framework inevitably drives generally safe, liberal, diligent justice, or of obligation and without interest to confidence in individuals. It is to observe el-filiburotismo. Tama na pagbasa. A united family in Hong Kong. Rizal left Europe for Hong Kong after the distribution of the Nobel, where he resided from November 1891 to June 1892. He developed kinship with William Prior, director of the British North Borneo Development Corporation, and his significant other Ada, with whom he would later sort out of the heretical state for his Calamba townsmates during this period. Julio disposed do size critical change which incorporated the sending back of Spain. The generally authorities brought Jose Rizal a confidence for change. Frustrations and intrigues in Madrid. Rizal traveled to Madrid in August 1990 to enlist the assistance of a Filipino colony and liberal Spanish media to obtaining justice for the victims. Marcelo H. del Pilar has been requested to represent in court. However, he did not receive the assistance he had stopped, and Marcelo del Pilar for the leadership of the Reform movement in Madrid. Rizal believed it was time to work directly with his people and decided to go back home. 18 months later, the La Solidaridad became politically defunct. The propaganda in Manila was the newspaper to become a medium for the political leadership. When Rizal arrived in Madrid, and Marcelo del Pilar competed for the leadership of the Reform movement in Madrid, Rizal chose to return home because he thought it was time to work directly with his people. The Manila Propaganda Department hoped that the publications, the Solidaridad, would become a vehicle for political leadership. Leonora Rivera married Charles Henry, keeping in Digumpan, Pangasinan on July 17, 1898. Jose Rizal's education. Jose Rizal studied in his hometown of Calamba from 1864 to 1870. At the age of 3, Dua Chodora taught Rizal the alphabet. Rizal began molding wax and clay sculptures at the age of 4, and at the age of 5, he began drawings and using the natural colors of fruits, vegetables, and even soot. Galicio and Vasco, 1985, Lucas Podua, Celestino, and Leon Monori were some of his private tutors. Jose Rizal was taught reading, writing, counting, and Latin by Maestro Leon Monroy for 4 pesos a month. Jose Rizal was sent to a private grammar school in Bian under Maestro Bastimanio Aquino Cruz when he was 9 years old. In June 1870, Rizal stayed at Alberto's residence in Bian. It was common practice for wealthy parents to send their children to private schools at the time. Jose Rizal departed Bian for Calamba in December of 1871. Jesuit education. Rizal took an admission examination at the Colegio de San Juan de Letrán in Christian doctrine, math, and reading when he was 11 years old, both of which were run by the domination order of the preacher. Jose Rizal passed the test with flying colors. He was eligible to begin his baccalaureate studies. Jose Rizal was involved in a variety of extracurricular activities, including serving as a campus leader and engaging in the arts, literary works, sciences, gymnastics, and fencing in his spare time. Jose Rizal received his diploma on March 23, 1877. There were 21 graduates in total. 12 received a Bachelor of Arts degree, one of whom was Rizal. Rizal received 5 first-place medals and 1 honorable mention. There were nine pupils, including Rizal, who received a grade of sobresaliente, which is not the same as valedictorian today. Glicerio Arson, a classmate of Rizal's, admitted that he was more gifted than him. Jesuit influence on Jose Rizal. The Jesuits could be said to have inspired Jose Rizal's passion to arts and literature. His ability to reason logically and his conviction in critical equality, as well as the development of Rizal's body, mind, and spirit. Bachelor Spanish education. He was a smart student who quickly rose to become the leader of a small group of Filipino students determined to end Spanish rule in the Philippines. He, on the other hand, was never a proponent of Philippine independence. The religious orders such as the Franciscan, Augustinian, and Dominican friars that Spain were Rizal's main opponents to change. They were the ones who created the Philippines' political and economic standstill. Rizal had participated in a large student rally while in university, marching across campus through Madrid's streets. The demonstration was ruthlessly suppressed by the police, who arrested the university rectors and several professors. Rizal avoided capture 3 times by patting on a disgrace. The occurrence occurred between November 20 and November 22, 1884. It was owing to the Catholic Churches of Spain excommunication and dismissal of Dr. Miguel Moratas Sugario. Sudden departure for Spain. Jose Rizal chose to leave unexpectedly and surreptitiously for Spain just after completing his 4th year of medicine at the UST. His parents decidedly moved him to Spain because his nationalistic activities were becoming well known, and his parents feared that Jose Rizal might suffer retaliation. People to Rizal went to Spain hurriedly and covertly to increase his literary and scientific knowledge. Others believe Pasiano forced Jose Rizal to travel to other countries, keep up with the European reform movement, and prepare himself to serve the Filipino people and are necessary the battle for their rights against the Spanish oppressor. Others claim he could no longer hear the UST bigotry and hatred. Others claim the couldn't marry Leonora because he was allowed to. Dominican education. Rizal chose to study medicine in the school year 1878 to 1879. He enrolled in both pre-medicine and first-year medical school courses at the same time. This was against university policy, but the Dominicans granted Rizal a favor. Jose Rizal was dissatisfied with his time UST. The Dominicans' attitude towards shaming students deterred Rizal. Instead, August the first addressed the students with tags, knocked them, and discouraged them from studying in tree. Furthermore, to Dominican professors who were not based against Filipinos used a teaching approach that emphasized memorization over comprehensions to dismissing Filipinos quest for knowledge, Rizal discovered that the Dominicans first were turning against him because he was an Athenian product, and there was a great rivalry between the Dominicans and the Jesuits. The problem was exert habit. Germany during Rizal's time. Germany was the most powerful country in continental Europe, but her dominance was measured in more ways than one. According to historian Francis G. Chassan, the German civil administration developed a reputation for being extremely honest and efficient during Rizal's municipal ownership, housing and town planning, and socio-economic law. German education flourished, especially in the science. German industry achieved organizational and productional victories, making the slogan "Made in Germany" associated with quality around the world. To an extent, unmatched in Western Europe, the German people exhibited unity, discipline, literacy, and patriotism. Go. No limit ang hari unexposed of societal risk. No limit ang hari was a portrayal of the faults of Philippine society during the Spanish colonial period. It poked fun at both the Friars and the Filipinos. Result animosity at the Friars stemmed largely from the home. The Friars were the owners of a huge hacienda where he destroyed the buildings in the land on Wheeler's orders a few years later, and other members of the family were deported to other areas of the islands. The novel featured individuals from all walks of life, wealthy and educated against the poor and uneducated, the intelligent, victims of religion and government, lawful against the lawless. All of these personalities became government, but religion was the primary sufferer. It develops the concept of power greed. Rizal became a member of Freemasonry. Rizal got his Licenciado of Medicina on June 21, 1884. With good grades, Rizal was dissatisfied with his medical license and enrolled in the Doctor of Medicine program. Passing all of the academic requirements, he was not awarded a doctor degree. However, due to his failure to pay his debts and the failure to present his thesis, he was also unable to sit for the final exam that would have qualified him to become a doctor. Was conferred to him posthumously on June 19, 1961, on the centennial of his birth. Rizal started writing No Limit ang Here during his time in Madrid. Rizal challenged his fellow Filipino students in Madrid to collaborate on a novel. They agreed, but the plan fell enough, leaving Rizal to write the book in his own Rizal, joined Masonry and sought acquaintance with prominent professors and doctors to gain more mature contacts and gain enlightenment in order to finish his work. Their liberal views showed Rizal how cruel perfume was in the Philippines. Rizal obtained his Licenciado of Filosofia Letras with a super license grade on June 19, 1885. Rizal left Spain after completing his licentiate in philosophy and letters in order to broaden his horizons and practice the European languages he had learned. Blumentritt Rizal lifelong friendship. Dr. Ferdinand Blumentritt was the one. He introduced Rizal to a member of internationally renowned intellectuals, including Adolf Meyer, Friedrich Sagor, and Rudolf Virchow. On May 13, 1887, Rizal and Blumentritt met for the first time while the latter was in Dmitritz. Rizal was able to astonish local speakers and Dmitritz with his mastery in the German language.